Hello, my dear students. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about the meaning of banks and its features. In today's class, we are going to discuss about the another aspects of banking. That is, we will discuss types of banks and its function in this class. So, we are moving further. According to the on the basis of ownership, the banks can be categorized as public sector bank, private sector bank, and cooperative banks. First of all, public sector bank. Yes, any idea? Public sector banks are those banks which are purely owned by the government. It means 100% stake is of government only. The government run these banks. In India, 20 banks were nationalized in 1969 and 1980 respectively in two phases. All these banks now belong to the public sector categories. Social welfare is the main purpose behind the public sector banks. Next comes the private sector banks. These are those banks which are owned and run by the private sector. Various banks in the countries like Vijay Bank, Yes Bank, these banks belong to the private sector. Next comes cooperative banks. Cooperative banks, as the name itself says, are those banks which are jointly run by some group of individuals. Each individual has an equal share in these banks, and the affairs of the banks are managed by its shareholders. Profits are equally divided among the shareholders, and these banks are run with the mutual help of all the members. So, cooperation is the main, or we may say, principal objective of these banks. Next category is according to the basis of law, banks can be categorized as scheduled banks and non scheduled banks. First, we come to scheduled banks. Scheduled banks are those banks which are having paid up capital of at least rupees 5 lakh, and these are like a joint stock company or a cooperative organization. These banks find have their name in the second schedule of Reserve Bank of India, and the other banks which are not under the schedule of RBI, they are non-scheduled banks. So non-scheduled banks are those banks which have paid up capital of less than rupees 5 lakh, and the number of such banks is gradually falling in India. There are only just three such banks at present. Next is, on the basis of functions, banks can be categorized as commercial banks, foreign banks, industrial banks, agriculture banks, saving banks, indigenous banks, and central bank. Commercial banks. Commercial banks are those banks which have main purpose of accepting deposits and lending, right? Foreign banks are those banks which are registered as per the foreign countries. They are incorporated as per the acts of foreign nations, but they have set up their branches in India. Next comes industrial banks. Industrial banks are those banks which offer long term and medium term loan to the industry and also work for their development. Next comes agriculture bank. As the name itself says, agriculture banks are based on agriculture. They mainly provide loans for agriculture purpose. Next comes saving banks. Saving banks include post office. These banks are mainly they work for principal objective of inducing small saving habits among the people. So, in India, a Department of Post Office functions as saving banks. Next comes indigenous banks. These are the banks which were found in India, and they have significant contribution to the development of agricultural and industry before independence, like Mahajans, rural money lenders, dwellers. They used to provide funding to the people in villages. But now these kinds of banks do not prevail in India at a large extent. They are very nominal in number. We may say this is an unorganized sector which are providing banking services. Next comes a central bank. Central bank means the bank which is central to all banks. This means a bank uh, which perform the role of regulator and works as a apex bank. So, Reserve Bank of India is central bank in India. Next, functions of commercial banks. My dear students, please um, read carefully. I am going to discuss the functions of commercial banks only. In the previous slide, I have discussed with you that on the basis of nature, the banks can be categorized. If the bank mainly focus on agriculture lending, then it is agriculture bank. If bank mainly focus on industrial lending, then it is industrial bank. Commercial banks are those banks which accept deposit from the public and advance loans. It do not have its own capital. It provide loans out of the deposits accepted. So if we want to test a particular bank whether it is a commercial bank or not, then there are two acid test functions of bank. First is acceptance of deposit and second is advancing of loans. If a particular bank perform these two functions, then it is a commercial bank. So, accepting of deposit may be in any form. Bank may accept deposit for fixed tenure. It may accept deposit for short-term tenure. So, loans may be advanced by the banks for short terms, long term, or mid term purposes also. So, the primary functions of banks are commercial banks are accepting of deposits and advancing of loans. Next, we comes toward the secondary functions. Um, Primary functions are those functions which are necessary to be performed by any bank, any commercial bank. To be called as commercial banks, the bank will perform these two basic functions, these primary functions. And other functions bank perform just to beat the competition. Under the secondary functions, bank performs certain agency functions. Agency functions are those functions which are performed by the bank as an agent. In certain cases, bank work as an agent to its customer. Like an example where bank work as an agent of the customer. Let me give you one clue that suppose you want to purchase certain shares. Can you purchase it directly? Then answer is no. Probably no, you cannot purchase the shares directly. You have to work through your bank. You want to suppose I want to deposit the fees of my kids. Then I will give instruction to my bank, sir, please deposit the this amount so and so to the account of my kid's school as his tuition fees. There are many instances where bank perform as an agent to its customer. As per the standing instruction of the customers, bank perform those functions which include like collection and payment of various items. Bank also purchase and sell securities on behalf of customers. Bank also transfer funds on the request of the customers. Bank also purchase and sell foreign exchange on the request of customers. Some cases bank also provide us letter of references also. Next are general utility services. General utility services are additional services bank which bank provides. These services are not basically banking services. These are additional features or additional benefits which bank offer to its customer. For example, local facility. Bank provide local facility to its customer. It issues travelers checks. It issues um, it also helps in transportation of goods. It provide us information regarding the information regarding the economy, etc. Next comes the developmental functions. As a commercial bank is supposed to perform certain functions for providing loans and advances to its customers. So bank have to perform certain developmental function. First is acceleration of capital formation. As the bank will provide loans to its customer, obviously it will help in generation of capital, further profits for the entrepreneurs, so it will lead to capital formation. Next is, it also helps in financing exports by long term loans. We can increase our export business if bank provides us loan. It banks also offer certain services for the upliftment of weaker section of the society. Bank provide them loans at concessional rates. It also work for upliftment of rural areas. It in certain cases banks are instructed to provide more and more loans for rural areas. So in certain cases banks have to work for as a target development. If government wants to expand a particular sector, then bank provide reasonable rate of interest loans to those sectors. For example, if we have to increase the consumption of automobiles, then bank will decrease the rate of interest on automobiles. Suppose bank wants to increase the housing development, then interest rate of interest on housing loan will be decreased accordingly. Next comes the types of deposits accepted by banks. You all of my dear students, all of you are having saving accounts in your one or the another bank. All of us are having saving bank account. Our parents are having saving bank accounts. So there are another we may say types of accounts, bank accounts, which bank operate. First is fixed deposit account. There are certain differences between these types of accounts. Fixed deposit accounts are those accounts where one time deposit and one time withdrawal is permissible. Customer have to deposit money only at once, and he can withdraw the money only once. Money is deposited for the fixed term, and bank offers high rate of interest on fixed deposit account. Next comes the saving account. Saving account is basically operated to increase, or we may say encourage, the small deposits. Banks offer saving account facility in which any number of time deposit could be made by the depositors, but yes, there is certain restriction on the withdrawal of money, so as to avoid unnecessary withdrawal from the bank. But comparatively, bank offer very less amount of interest on saving account deposits. Next comes to the current account. Current account is that account which is operated by not by domestic sector, it is for the business class. Businessmen have current account. As businessmen have to make lots of transaction, they have to deposit money into the bank, and they have to issue many checks out of their business account. So the any number of time deposits and any number of time withdrawals can be made. There is no fixed term of deposits. At any moment of time deposits can be withdrawn from the banks. And one special feature, no interest is allowed by bank on the current accounts. Next come the recurring deposits account. Recurring deposits account are, we may say, customer have recurring tendency to deposit the money. Recurring means बार बार customer बार बार deposit करता है, and the amount is same, and tenure is also same. Specified amount is deposited at a specified time period. Suppose it may be daily account, it may be monthly account, it may be weekly account, and bank will deposit money after that specified period only, and customer cannot withdraw the amount before a specified period. Interest rate is comparatively higher in this kind of bank account. Next comes the types of loans which banks offer. There are basically three types of loans which bank offer. One is bank overdraft, cash credit, and third one is the discounting of bill of exchange. Although bank also provide certain loans and advances to the customers for various tenures. First, we will go with bank overdraft. Bank overdraft is a kind of short-term loan in which bank give permission to the customer to issue check uh, with the amount which is more than the balance available in the bank account. Suppose I am having balance of 80,000 rupees in my bank account, and I wish to give check of rupees 1 lakh to my customer. Then I can issue the check of mounting rupees 1 lakh if bank have permitted me to do so. Bank will not bounce the check. Otherwise, if I have not got permission from the bank will return my check, because I would have if I am having insufficient balance in my bank account. But in case bank overdraft limit has been maintained by the bank, then bank will um, pass your check. Next way out is cash credit. Cash credit is another way of providing loans and advances. In this system, cash credit limit is sanctioned by the bank, and you are not supposed to withdraw the complete amount at one time. You can withdraw the amount in installments, and interest would be charged only up to the balance withdrawn, not on the complete amount sanctioned. Cash credit is basically limit which is used by business class. Next is discounting of bill of exchange. It is another way out of providing loans and advances to the customers. It is a short-term advancing technique where bank discount the bills which were drawn by the vendors and accepted by the buyer. If the customer have enough goodwill in the market, then bank will discount the bill of exchange. And next is loans and advances. Bank may also provide loans and advances for long terms, for short term, and for various tenures. Next comes the role of commercial banks in economic development. As we have already discussed the various functions of commercial bank, so certainly commercial bank plays an important role in the economic development of a country. First is helpful in mobilization of saving and capital formation. Bank induces saving habits among customers, and it will lead to capital formation and investment in the society. Next is it is also helpful in innovation. Bank helps in making new innovations. Bank provide certain loans for making further research work and for new businesses. It provide loans for those business ideas new which have certain new markets or new technology, so that new innovations could be motivated. Next, it is also helpful in the effective implementation of monetary policy. Uh, we all know that Reserve Bank prepare monetary policy, and these monetary policies are implemented through the channel of commercial banks. Reserve Bank of India is only the decision maker, but these policies are implemented with the help of commercial bank only. Next, importance of commercial bank is it is helpful in the development of priority sectors. Commercial bank contribute for the development of priority sector of the economy. The banks help to achieve their objective by means of selective credit policy to those priority areas. In less developed countries, banks provide loans to farmers and small scale industrialists. Next is it is also helpful in productive activities and exports. Commercial banks are helpful in stimulating the economic activity and expanding exports in less developed countries. They promote agriculture and industrial sectors to um increase their production so that those products could be exported to another countries, which will help in increasing the earning of foreign exchange. Last but not the least, commercial bank is helpful in credit creation. It create credit in the market for those sectors which are underdeveloped or which are not fully developed in the economy. To promote those sectors, commercial banks create credit to those sectors also. So